Okay, my name is Abby Ido, but a lot of people call me Abby because it's easier to say. I'm originally from Nigeria, Lagos State, but I've been in Bolton for almost 4 years. I'm a writer and a performance poet. I write short stories, poetry, and plays, and I do a bit of painting when I have the time. But that's me.
So what brings you down to the Bolton Museum today?
Well, I was invited by James Walmsley for the Revealing Histories program that is going on. I've actually done this before for the James Watkins book that was printed by the Bolton Museum. And that was to commemorate the 200-year abolition of the slave trade. I did that last year. That was late last year. Took the book home, read it, took some of the words, put it together as poetry. And basically the poetry I wrote was a sort of direct narrative of if James Watkins himself had written the poem. And that's what I did with that. And apparently they really liked it and recommended me to James. And he got in touch with me through Pete Kalu. And I'm here today. One thing that hit me was how close to myself I found the whole story of James Watkins. Here's someone who his entire beginnings started in this slave place, this slave camp, where he didn't even know what year he was born. You know, he was just born to this overseer who didn't have any feelings towards him. But he wasn't really seen as his father's son. He was seen as the plantation owner's property. And he was taken away from his mother. There's that whole disconnection of family. What you get from the first chapters of James Watkins' life is that a slave is not encouraged to think about family at all. So as soon as you're born, you're taken away, given someone else to be nursed and all that. And you know, that whole feeling of being treated less than human was what was prevalent in the entire book. That he has a value. He's first of all valued at $900, then $950 when he grew older. When he ran away, a reward of $250 was put on his head. And it just tells you about how a human being is deconstructed down to being a property, like a cow or a goat or a dog or cat or anything. And that was something that I found very hard to struggle, something I found very hard to deal with. I struggled with the whole concept of that. But what I also found very, very enlightening and very, very deep about the character of James Watkins was the whole presence of hope. And there wasn't hate in his voice. If you read the narrative, you wouldn't hear hate. You would just hear distaste and of the condition, but not of humanity at large. So he did not take it out on everyone that he came across and say, "Oh, I'm black, you're white, so therefore there is no relationship." He was enslaved by a certain group of people, but in running away, he also met people who were within that same environment who treated him like a human being. And I think that's something we need to look at this present day age, that whole legacy of slave trade isn't to foster hate or a blame culture of you versus us, but to say that despite everything that's happened, we can still form a relationship and move on and become what we're meant to be in the first place, which is all together in a place united.
Did you use some of the material verbatim, or how did that inspiration of reading the narrative work with you?
Well, what I did was, if you've read the book and you heard the poem, you see that virtually every line in there is directly from the book itself. I wanted it to be like it was James himself speaking, telling people, this is my life in a condensed form. So most of the words, in fact, virtually everything, maybe just a few conjunctions or things like that, were directly from the book. It was a bit hard trying to merge one idea with the other, but after some time working with it, reading the book over and over again, and then writing down notes, I was able to do that. And I mean, from responses that I have gotten, it has been successful. Because for some people who haven't had access, I've had a few friends who haven't had access to the book, but that poem has been like the book, that they've read this man's life in about 15 minutes, and they're like, whoa, that is a lot. And it's made a lot of people come to the library to look for copies of the book. So I think it has actually taken the form of James Watkins and spoken in his voice, if I say so myself. The experiences, I can only imagine. But this is someone who went through the experience himself. So I tried as much as possible to take myself away, because I felt that if I put myself in the whole narrative, I might have diluted the effect of what he was saying. So that's why I tried as much as possible to use his own words, because then one can hear the power of what it was like directly. But if I tried to, then I might make it less of a metaphor and more of a simile, and start saying like when it is actually this. I think I said at the beginning of the performance that I am unworthy to say these lines because of what I said earlier. But of course, in the process of reading it, it's a history that I have a connection with. Is part of my history. All that hurts that I explained in there is part of something that I know I have a part of, even if it's hundreds of years away, removed from me. And so in reading it, I was able to sort of see through his words what it was like. And I think that's what I wanted to pass across to everyone who was listening, that see along with me as I have seen what James Watkins has said. See this. This is like I'm trying to be the middle person between James, the writer, and the people listening. And from what you've said, I think I was able to, I'm quite happy.
It's like a kind of a mediator's role, isn't it? Where the actual singing that topped and tailed the piece, where did that come from?
Oh, okay, that was my own piece in there. That was the song. The very first song is talking about, translating it directly, is just talking about an evil whirlwind that comes to take away children, and the mother is singing and saying she doesn't know where her children are. The children have all gone away. This evil wind has taken them away. And I think that's the way Africa, the continent, the mothers who lost their children, the wives who lost their husbands, the sisters who lost their brothers, and vice versa, felt when these people were snatched from their homeland and taken away, and the whole finality of we most likely would never ever see each other again. And I felt that song captured the whole feeling. So I put it at the beginning. The song at the end is actually just saying that is like a sort of victory song, that things have changed. Life suddenly will improve. So mother, do not cry anymore. Your child will come home. So because of the end of James' story about him getting his freedom at last and being able to move around as a free person, that's what I also wanted to, interpret with that song, and that's why it came at the top and at the bottom.